All right, let's jump right into this because I am absolutely pumped for today's explainer. We're going to look at a concept that completely flips how we think about modern management. Today, we're exploring this really surprising secret, one that actually comes from ancient cultural wisdom that unlocks just incredible team efficiency. So, if you're someone who loves to optimize your workflow and get the absolute best out of yourself and your colleagues, you are going to love the breakdown we have for you today. But before we reveal the secret, I want you to just pause and really reflect on this for a second. Why do we insist on carrying heavy burdens completely alone? Seriously, in our fast paced modern work culture, there is this massive obsession with extreme independence. We have this deep seated need to handle every single problem with absolute self sufficiency. You know the feeling. We want to show our determination, our mental toughness, our responsibility, right? We just take the whole load onto our own shoulders without uttering a single complaint. And I mean, it sounds incredibly noble, but as the source material points out, this instinct might actually be our biggest operational flaw.
We've all seen them, or maybe we've been them, the independent work hero. The person who handles literally all their problems completely solo. We tend to think this shows absolute strength, but the reality? The source highlights that taking this lone wolf approach directly opens the door to high stress, intense fatigue, and ultimately a massive drop in productivity. Attempting to be the solo hero doesn't actually make the work better. It just leaves you completely exhausted.
Section 1. A simple Korean secret. A modern paradigm shift. Let's step away from this modern burnout trap for a minute and look at a solution that comes from generations of cultural practice. You know, sometimes the oldest, simplest proverbs hold the most powerful lessons for our super complicated modern problems. Get a load of this one. Even a sheet of paper is lighter when two people lift it together. This is a deeply ingrained proverb in Korean culture, passed down generation after generation. And I want you to really think about the metaphor here. A single sheet of paper. I mean, it's practically weightless, right? It takes absolutely zero effort for one person to lift it. But the proverb insists that even a task that impossibly small, that entirely simple, benefits from shared effort. It beautifully illustrates that when you collaborate, the combined strength and shared value become instantly apparent, and it drastically reduces the intensity of any problem. Section 2, delegation multiplies team efficiency. So, how exactly does a simple proverb about lifting a piece of paper translate directly to speed and efficiency in a modern corporate workplace? Well, the source breaks this down into some really logical points, mapping out how we can actually apply this to our own management styles. First off, we need to completely reframe our mindset around delegation. Asking for help, it is not a sign of incompetence or inability. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. It's a highly intelligent management strategy for getting things done. In fact, it's listed as one of the primary takeaways in the source material. Seeking the assistance of others is simply a smart, strategic pathway to complete a job effectively. It isn't a weakness, it's a massive tactical advantage. Let's break down the actual mechanics of why this works so well. When you have a solo task, it demands your absolute maximum individual energy. You are providing 100% of the fuel to keep that engine running. But compare that to a shared task. The source explicitly notes that when multiple people work together, the required energy from each individual drops significantly. Every single participant only needs to contribute a small, minimal amount of energy. Because the burden is distributed, the overall job suddenly becomes incredibly easy to execute. And think about what that energy distribution does to your task speed. When you work solo, your speed is naturally lower because, well, you bottleneck at your own physical and mental limits. But with teamwork, task speed skyrockets. The source material emphasizes that when a group tackles a task, they're able to complete it seamlessly, quickly, and crucially, without the interruptions and roadblocks that a solo worker inevitably hits. Efficiency isn't just about working harder, you guys. It's about literally sharing the physics of the workload. Section 3, shared work elevates quality, elevating the output. Now, you might be wondering, does delegation dilute the quality of the final product? Sure, speed is great, but what about the output? According to this philosophy, it does the exact opposite. Teamwork directly boosts output in 3 distinct ways. First, when responsibilities are shared, the overall quality of the work naturally rises, ensuring the job is finished in the absolute best possible manner. Second, combining people means individual talents and strengths actually get to shine through and reflect in the final product. You get this amazing mosaic of expertise rather than just one person's limited perspective. And third, when a group decides to tackle a task together, it leads to much better, complication-free decision-making. You're basically crowdsourcing the smartest path forward. Section 4. Beating burnout through trust. Building through trust. Okay, so we've talked about speed and we've talked about quality, but we absolutely have to address the human element here. The psychological safety and emotional benefits of this Korean proverb are just as important as the operational ones. Let's look at how this impacts burnout. Working alone doesn't just make you tired, it breeds boredom, stress, and serious fatigue. It's just a lonely grind. But sharing tasks, worries, and ideas, that leads directly to reduced anxiety and a relaxed mind. When you seek help from your team, it drastically decreases stress and paves the way for much easier problem solving, even in highly difficult situations. Because when you start to share the load, this beautiful, natural progression takes place within your team. Step 1, you just share the workload. You ask someone to help lift that sheet of paper. That naturally leads to step 2, building mutual trust. And as that trust grows, you inevitably reach step 3, strengthening professional relationships. The source highlights that when more than one person acts together, the bond between them tightens. You aren't just finishing a project, you're actively building a much more resilient, trusting team infrastructure.
Section 5. The key to lasting success. Lasting achievements.
So how does this ancient cultural wisdom fit into our highly demanding, metrics-driven modern corporate world? Does it really still hold up? The source makes this definitively clear. Modern corporate success relies on teamwork. Period. Solo efforts, despite what our whole independent hero complex tries to tell us, only drain your overall productivity. If you think you can handle everything as a one-person army today, the text warns that this is a one-way ticket to exhaustion and mental pressure, actively decreasing your true productive capacity.
And it gets even better. Success achieved by a team is a success that lasts much longer. This is such a profoundly important point from our source material. When more than one person successfully completes a task together, the victory isn't fleeting. The resulting success has a far greater staying power than any isolated achievement some solo worker might manage to scrape together. It's built on a stronger, shared foundation. Which brings us to the end of today's explainer. And I want to leave you with this final, provocative question to really chew on. What sheet of paper will you delegate to your team tomorrow? Seriously, challenge yourself. Find one small thing, something that feels as light as a sheet of paper, and instead of just doing it yourself out of habit, actively choose to share it. Apply this brilliant proverb to your workflow, leverage the power of delegation, and just watch how it completely transforms your team's efficiency, quality, and overall well-being. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible concept today. Catch you next time.